Welcome back to the Hurry Up Offense, fantasy football news and advice for Week 13 of the 2022 NFL fantasy football season. In about, 10, 15 minutes? We'll find out. I am Smokey Rameriz, your fantasy football pro. Let's go. Today's topic, I'm going to get a little deeper into the touchdown-dependent players. Last week we talked about running backs. I think this week we're going to talk a little about wide receivers. Plus, don't forget, playoffs are coming up in 2 weeks. I hope you're a lock, and if not, I hope you're still fighting to get that spot. But first, let's get into the news. Whoa, the Wednesday night news dump. It feels like a long time since I've said that, but here it is, and it is bleak over in the Rams camp. So I almost said Sam Darnold. Aaron Donald is out for week 13. Guess who else is out? Matt Stafford. This whole team is bad, and if you do play IDP, of course, you're not going to have Aaron Donald, which is one of the best players in the NFL and has been for the last 5 years. But this whole team is so bad. Stafford, even though Stafford is not in there, you're probably not missing him too bad because he's been horrible when he wasn't there. Injuries be what it is, but this offensive line is bad, and this entire offense is bad. There is not one single piece of this team that I want right now on my team unless it is a super deep league. Then you can take a shot on a Cam Akers or something like that. Other than that, I'm just staying completely away from this, even in DFS. Oh no, we're still in California, and this is all too familiar, but over in the 49ers camp, McCaffrey sidelined Wednesday. Shanahan said that McCaffrey just felt something in that left knee during the last week. It was labeled as irritation, I think they were saying, but now they're wondering if it could be more serious. It really does show the fragility of the running back position, especially in Christian McCaffrey's case, because he has been the best running back in the NFL for at least 3 to 4 years now. But it is a tough position, and you can't stay on the top for very long. It just doesn't happen. There are tough tanks of guys that last forever, like Frank Gore, and maybe we'll see that with Ezekiel Elliott, but you can't stay on top forever, and I think we may be seeing the fall of McCaffrey here. So I don't expect him to be quite the number one running back in the NFL in seasons going forward. But as for this week, he may be out there, he may not. The reports are inconclusive at this time, so keep an eye on that. Let's check out the Browns because David Njoku has a new knee injury. This is not the same knee that he had the problem with last week. This is a new one. You're going to have to keep an eye on this throughout the rest of the week and see if he's going to be available. Now, I do expect that if Njoku is ready for this game, he could be a heavily targeted player in this game. We really don't know exactly what Watson's going to look like. He hasn't played in a season and a half, but he should be extra motivated going back up against the Texans this week, who are easily exploited. So, this could be a heavy target game for Njoku if he's out there. If not, I will load up on Amari Cooper. Let's check out Cincinnati a little bit over in Bengals land. It looks like Jamar Chase is ready for a return. He is very close to being ready, and he could quite possibly play this week. Man, T. Higgins has been putting in work in his absence, but these two guys on the field is actually going to give a bump to both of them, and they are in a prime spot going against the Chiefs this week. This should be a shootout by all means, and Chase and Higgins, along with all of the receivers over on the other side of the field, oh God, I can't wait. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. And along those exact same lines, it looks like Joe Mixon is ready to return. Wow, this is lining up to be an epic shootout. If it is not a close to 100-point game, I'll be amazed. This is going to be an epic battle, in my opinion. It's going to be in Cincinnati, so that favors the Bengals, and we know how easily Mahomes and that Chiefs offense can score. DFS, load these guys up. If either one of these guys are ready to go, or both of them, and you are concerned about putting either one right back in, I would not be in this game. If they are playing, you are starting both of these guys. And to run to the rest of it, because we don't have as much time. Well, we have the same amount of time, but I'm going to run out of time if I overly explain the entire news section, so I will get on with it. Goddard over in Eagles land is hoping to return week 15. Jaylen Warren for the Steelers cleared to return. That could be a good spot. Rodgers is sidelined Wednesday. He's still dealing with that thumb injury, but I'm not that worried about Rodgers. I'm really not. He's going to do what he does. I think it's not that he's going to return to MVP status at any point this season, but if he's on the field, he has a solid floor for you. Najee Harris for the Steelers, up in the air. If he's out, throw Jaylen Warren in there. That's going to be a load 'em up spot. Peterson is optimistic about ETN's return for week 13, and it's really not even a return because he did play a couple of snaps in this game, but he was taken out right after the game. He said he was okay and could have came back in the game, and then Peterson seemed to acknowledge that there was no problem, that it was just a precautionary move, but now we're looking at that it may be worse, but Peterson still says he'll probably play. So if Travis Etienne is out there on the field, you plug him into your starting lineup. As we feared, Kyle Pitts is out for the rest of the season. That tight end landscape just does not get any better, does it? It just keeps going down this downward spiral. Man, we may have to take out tight ends in the future and just go to like super flex or double flex or something where you can still play tight ends, but you're not necessarily required to play it. That might be an option for fantasy football in the future. But Harrison also sidelined Tuesday. I said Harrison. Damian Harris is also sidelined, yes. Josh Jacobs is still dealing with his calf strain. And after a game like that, I believe it. I mean, Jesus Christ, that was one of the biggest fantasy football games I've ever seen from a running back the entire time I've been playing. Now, Joe Mixon put up something similar a few weeks back, and then Josh Jacobs said, no, I got this. I can do better, and he did. We're going to have to look back at some easy for me to say, LaDainian Tomlinson records back in those days to see if there was anything close to that, but Josh Jacobs might just have the modern era record for fantasy football running backs. Well, that concludes the news for this week. Let's get on to the game theory portion of the show. We're talking about touchdown dependency. That almost seems like a bad word, kind of like alcohol dependency or some sort of drug dependency. And it may be just as bad for your fantasy team in the end. No, I'm not going to equate anything in fantasy football to a real life struggle with addiction, but these are the guys you really have to watch out for if you plan on winning a championship. Now, when we're talking about wide receivers, we often see a pattern in touchdown dependent wide receivers where they often pair up with other elite wide receivers on the team. Now, the case I want to look at first is Tyler Lockett, who is absolutely touchdown dependent, and you're probably thinking he is doing quite well for your fantasy team this year. He does have 6 touchdowns, but the problem comes that he only has 78 targets and 57 receptions. That's a problem. Now, who I am less worried about on the same team is also kind of touchdown dependent because, like I said, they tend to pair up, and that's DK Metcalf. DK has 4 touchdowns, 671 yards, and 59 receptions. Seems very similar, right? But the targets are the key here. 92 targets for DK compared to 78 for Tyler. Volume is king in fantasy football. So this right here would tell you that in the end, we are most likely going to see more points throughout the season for DK than for Tyler Lockett. Plus, he is a huge physical dominant receiver that can win contested catches, so you would think Geno might go to him more. Now, where they play on the field, and being that Geno is not an elite passer, could play into this. So we may end up at the end of the season seeing both of them pretty much even, but I am less worried about DK Metcalf than Tyler Lockett. Another pairing, Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Let's go with Ja'Marr Chase. 47 receptions, 74 targets, 6 touchdowns, 826 yards. Now, this would tell you that I would be less worried about T. Higgins. 57 receptions, 80 targets, 4 touchdowns with 826 yards. And the reason you would be less is because of that yardage. He's getting you more points. But Ja'Marr Chase has also missed some time. So it's really a toss-up who ends up with the most points by the end of the season. But if both of these players were completely healthy and played alongside of each other every game, an entire season, Ja'Marr Chase is going to outscore T. Higgins. Either one of these guys would be absolutely Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams type wide receivers if they were solo and didn't have each other. But since they have each other, they are touchdown dependent, much like Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Now, Brandon Ayuk has 51 receptions on 74 targets and 6 touchdowns for 652 yards. Who has a lot less? That's not, well, I guess I can't say it's a lot less, but he has less. Deebo Samuel. 44 receptions, 76 targets, 2 touchdowns. And I am less worried about Deebo Samuel. It's weird to say that, but here's the reason. Deebo Samuel has 33 rushes on the season. In the end, this could be much more valuable than Brandon Ayuk, especially heading into the playoffs. They have running back issues, and they will use, this is a Shanahan special right here, they will use Deebo Samuel as the running back and wide receiver in the same game. So if this plays out like I'm seeing it playing out, Brandon Ayuk is still going to be wonderful for your team. He is touchdown dependent, and it seems that Deebo is too. But if he's out there playing running back, he is not touchdown dependent, and he will help you win a fantasy championship. Now, people who are not touchdown dependent that are paired up, and like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Both of these guys are absolutely dominant. 963 yards for Jalen, 1,233 yards for Tyreek. 6 touchdowns for Jalen, 4 touchdowns for Tyreek. These guys are blowing the other pairs out of the water, and I think it just has to do with that offensive scheme, and that Tua is absolutely on a breakout MVP trajectory this season. It should continue. You want to know the number one most touchdown dependent in the NFL right now as far as wide receiver? That is absolutely Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis has 5 touchdowns, and he's probably helping you win some weeks, especially with 19.7 yards per reception, which is blowing these other guys out of the water. The problem is, because of Stephon Diggs being the number 1 target and being as good as he is, Gabe Davis has been limited to 33 receptions this season on 60 targets. He just does not get the targets. Although he gets the touchdowns for you, that's not going to hold up in every single game. If you only read the stat lines at the end of the game, you would think Gabe Davis is going to win you a lot of games this year, but it might not be the case. You might want to note that going into your playoffs. Now, that's it for the game theory portion of the show, and for the entire show for that matter. Man, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, the Beyond Football channel. If you want to hear Alex and I break down every game every single week and predict the winners as only we can do, that's the scoreboard. It's already up. It came out yesterday as you're listening to this, or whenever you're listening to this, it's already out. Go over to the channel, find that, and I will see you. You know what? I'm forgetting something. I am Smokey Rameriz, your fantasy football pro. I'll see you next week. Deuces.